Hello again and welcome back to Canal Sidings Model Railway channel. This is a very special video in that today is the 11th of May 2017 and I started this channel on the 11th of May 2015, so it's the anniversary. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everybody who subscribes to me. I've got about 440 now, I think, which is more than I ever expected in the first year. And also thank everybody who comments, likes, and just anybody who watches my videos, because that makes it all worthwhile. So thank you for that. You're watching a couple of locomotives with trains running around on my Inglethwaite layout, which forms part of this video, but there will be a little bit of all three of my layouts to come. In the last video I mentioned that the Inglethwaite layout had lost a couple of sections on the main lines, so I decided to move Canal Sidings out of the way and see if I could find out what the problem was. One of the problems went away, typically, but the other one I have now fixed and turned out to be a bad connection nowhere near where Canal Sidings was. But in the meantime I had another problem, which I'll show you what that was in a second when we move over towards Canal Sidings itself. Okay, here we are over at Canal Sidings, and I'll talk about Canal Sidings in a moment, but first of all, the other problem on Inglethwaite was down to this. This is a 9-volt adapter, 9-volt 1 amp adapter, and it's failed. It's now a 0 volts, no amps adapter, and it's what powered all the cameras in the fiddle yard area of of Inglethwaite. So suddenly I had no cameras, and that took me a little while to solve because it's a hell of a job to find out where everything's connected. There's a lot of circuitry around that. There's all the relays that operate it. Those relays are operated from JMRI running on the computer. So it took a little bit of tracking down, but as it was all the cameras, it was fairly obvious it was going to be something catastrophic. Anyway, so I had to wait for a while in order to get hold of another mains adapter. And while I was waiting, I did some work on Canal Sidings. What I've done is I have done a couple of things which came to light during that rather hilarious shunting session where I was awful at it, and a couple of other things that I thought of or I'd been intending to do for some time. The first one that I've done that you can very easily see, I think, is that from here all the way around here and all the way around there and across to there, I have put on the Sky backseat. Unfortunately, if you look all the way over there to that join, which is the join between the baseboards, you'll see I didn't quite match it properly. I think it's probably because I got one of the sheets the wrong way round. However, there is a large building to go there, and I'd like to cover up the gap between the back scenes anyway, so a factory chimney was probably the order of the day over there. I've also, this piece, which the warehouse normally stands in front of, is now fixed in place. I have actually put a piece of wood behind it here and screwed into it from the other side of that back scene, and another piece of wood way down there that you can't see, and another screw, so it's removable, but it is now fixed. Also, just before I started that shunting session, I almost had a disaster. I drove a loco off of one of the lines on the main baseboard, and I drove it onto a non-aligned sector plate track. The loco derailed and actually fell over. Luckily it fell over onto the sector plate, but as you can possibly see, just here there is a stub track, and just here there's one of the real tracks, which, if the sector plate is where it is now, way back there, a loco could actually fall off the end into the mechanism. Now that's more serious than it appears, because there was nothing underneath this mechanism at all. So that loco could have tumbled to the floor, dragging a rake of wagons with it, possibly. So what I've done is, down there I have now added a catcher plate. Simply put in 4 pieces of wood underneath the layout and screwed a piece of 3mm MDF to those 4 pieces of wood. So 4 screws, it comes off, and you can get to the mechanism of the sector plate very easily. So that's another thing that I've done. I have also got this servo working again. I flick the right switch, that servo now works again. The reason it didn't work is because the wire from it used to come down through that hole there, and of course that is now in the only part of the building that goes here that I can detail and light, because this takes up the rest of it. So what I've done is I have drilled a hole way round there. I can't even see it, it's way round there, around, so that you can see what I'm trying to point at. It's just down by the corner of that block of wood there. It's not visible to you, but and the wire has now passed through there, and it plugs in directly to the servo control board. So that's something else I've done. The last thing that I've done, which was something that, if you remember, was also a serious problem in my shunting, I couldn't tell where I was on the sector plate. I couldn't understand at the time why I couldn't tell, but the reason was that the sector plate tracks had no markings to distinguish one from the other, and therefore I didn't know which camera I was looking at half the time. So what I've now done is I have marked all of the out tracks from the sector plate and the 3 tracks on the sector plate. The out tracks are marked A, B, C and D, starting from the front of the layout, and the sector plate tracks are marked 1, 2, 3, starting from the front of the layout, and then the 2 stub tracks, which are just they're there, you can use them for alignment, but they're not necessary at all. I just marked 0, meaning that they're not real tracks. So what I'll do is I'll just stop the camera for a second, and I'll get the monitor and show you now what it looks like on the monitor as we move the sector plate. Okay, so here we are at the sector plate end of the layout, a bit closer in. You can now see the monitor, that is the only thing you will be able to use to watch the sector plate moving. You can actually see the sector plate, but bear in mind when the warehouse is in there you will see nothing. So you can only use this to gauge where that sector plate is. I have the 3 cameras switchable. I am at the moment on camera number 3. If I click this button, that's now taken me to camera number 2, and I throw the switch on the control panel, and that takes me to camera number 1. And I know from the numbers on the sector plate which camera I'm on. That's 1, that's 2, and a flick there takes me to 3, and they correspond to the tracks of the sector plate. So you can see that track B, the out track, which is this one here, is not aligned to a sector plate track, and you could lose a loco down that hole, which you can't anymore. And also track A is way over here, which I think you can see. There's B, A is back here, so a loco could easily fall off there, which is why I needed to put in that catcher plate. So now if I want to get a loco off of track A onto track 1, all I have to do is move the sector plate this way, because I need to go from B to A, and it's A, B, C, D. It will eventually take me to A. I know it's track 1 that's on A, so I know which sector plate I'm going, which sector plate track I'm on. And there we are, ready to take a train off of track A onto sector plate track 1, or off sector plate track 1 onto track A. If I want to see what track 2 is aligned to, I switch to camera 2, and it actually is aligned to B. If I switch to camera 3, it's a bit difficult to do it from that angle. There we go. It's also aligned, almost aligned to track C, but I can align it if I need to. Pretty much aligned to track C now. So I now can take anything from any track onto the sector plate. So if I had something on track C and I wanted it on the main layout, track C, bear in mind, is one of the hidden ones at the back. C and D are the hidden tracks. I can drive a train off of track C onto 3. I can then bring the sector plate forward and take track 3 onto track B. So I did try to mark it once before, but that wasn't very clear when it was a bit darker. And of course, not knowing which sector plate track I was on was much worse. So the train that I've just taken out of track C can now be taken out onto the main layout on track B. I could also have brought the train out on track 2. So let's look at track 2. Sorry, got to use that button. There's track 2. I could have taken track 2 all the way around to track C. A bit further to go. I said track C, I'm in track B. I can't get track 2 to track C. Watch. I can get track 2 to track C, I beg your pardon, I can't get it to track D, that's what I'm trying to say. I can get it to track C. There we are, I'm at track C, but it won't go as far as track D. It's now hit the end stop. I can't drive it. I've now got to reverse the direction of the sector plate and bring it back, and now I can get it to there. So I can bring a train out from track C onto track 2, but I can't bring a train out from track C onto track D onto track 2. But I can bring a C to 3 or a D to 3. So there are a few restrictions. I also can't get track 1 any further than, I think it's track B. Let's have a look. Yes, I can't get track 1 any further than track B. It will die. But I can get track 1 to track B. That's the end stop micro switches. So I can get it to track B, and I can get track 1 to track A. So I have quite a lot of combinations that do work, but there are a few of the extreme ones that don't work. And I know I'm looking at camera 1, track 1 on the traverser. Sorry, sector plate. There we go, and I can take this further and you'll see one of the zeros, which is one of the stub tracks. Which is there. Obviously no use. You can see that it's a stub track because you can see there's nothing here. But if you didn't notice that, then 0 should let you go. I used to have X, but anyway, there's the sector plate now working much better than it used to, and I know where I am with it. I still make a mistake sometimes in talking about tracks A, B, C or D. And I do have the extra capacity for one more camera without any more switches on the control panel. But where that camera needs to be, I have not managed to make up my mind yet. When I have figured out where that camera needs to be, then perhaps I will install it. The difficulty is tracks C and D, which are the two right at the back, are going to be hidden. And that's where wagons will be stored off-scene, and I don't know how easy or difficult it's going to be to see which track has got wagons on it, so I could decide to put another set of wagons on a track, if you see what I'm saying. I haven't tried it yet, so I'm a bit confused myself anyway, but that's one of the things that I have the extra capacity for another camera, but it's just not installed yet. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about Canal Sidings, because that's all I've done on it since last time. The last thing is a little bit more progress on the North Grove engine shed. So we'll go and have a look at that now. Okay, and for the last part of this video, this is the progress so far on the buildings for North Grove. This is the first engine shed, which is the 2-road running shed, and as you can see, it's now in one piece. The front and the rear are built. The rear looks the same as the front. If I turn it over, you can see it. The ends still need doing. The ends actually have a buttress to go down here, and a buttress in the centre. I could fit the centre buttresses, but the instructions say do them all at once, so that's probably what I'll do. But you don't fit these until you've sorted the roof out. I don't understand why that is, but the Canal Sidings, the Scale Scenes instructions say not to fit them until you get to the point of having the roof on. As you can see, I've got the siding in, the wheels siding, and I have it here as well, and on the other side. The windows have worked out reasonably well on both sides. They're all quite solidly stuck. I showed that to my wife and she was quite taken by some different types of windows to what I've been making before. So the next job is actually the roof, and I've got an idea how I'm going to do the roof, but I'm not 100% sure. It's going to be a little bit of trial and error because it's not clear from the Scale Scenes instructions exactly how the roof fitted in the first place. And of course, even if I built the Scale Scenes roof now, it might not fit this the way it was supposed to, because I didn't build this exactly to Scale Scenes specifications. So we will see what happens there. There's just one thing. I did get a query about using brick paper on plasticard from the point of view of what happens if you get creepage of the limonene that I used to fix it all together under the brick paper. Well, I got worse than that at one point. Around here, I have to be careful with this because the four corners are on. Just here, I actually spilt limonene on here, really thick. I dropped the brush and it splashed on there, and that's where it went. It also splattered up here where it splashed. All I did was left it. I didn't touch it, and these were only just wet. They soaked into the paper very quickly. This one was actually wet. So I used my small fan and I held it up in front of that fan to dry the limonene quickly. Didn't touch it, just let it dry. And what's happened is that the brickwork still shows underneath it. It just looks like a bit of a stain on the brickwork. As it's low down on the wall, it's probably fine. It's also on the bit that you won't be able to see, because it's actually, if I turn this round again, it's actually on the back of the building. You won't be able to see that, so there'll be a retaining wall running along here where the fiddle yard is, so you won't be able to see that. But it's an interesting point, something I hadn't thought of. What happens if the limonene contaminates everything, the brick paper? Well, it didn't take the ink off, which was really interesting. There are things that will take the ink off. I wouldn't, if you spit on it, it will take the ink off. It's very strange. How do I know? Yes, I dribbled on it once. Anyway, enough of that. Here is a bit of the guttering, which actually sits in there like that up to the end, and as you can see, despite my idea originally, this evergreen guttering is not long enough. It's about 1/4 of an inch short. So what I should do is I should join it over one of the buttresses where it's got something to stick to. Trying to put a little tiny piece in the end there is not on. So that's where I am with the running shed. I've got another one of these to build, which is the single road one, which I have the end pieces of here. Here are the ends. And I do get this problem where the sticky labels, the A4 labels, actually don't stick very well once you have coated this, once you've coated the label material in the Winsor & Newton fixative that I use, the ink fixative. Well, the ink protector I think it is. All I do with that is use a drop of this, which is Yoo-hoo all-purpose adhesive. I know a lot of people like to use the solvent-free one. To be honest, I find it useless for this sort of job. Probably fine on paper, but if you're trying to stick to non-similar materials, the all-purpose one is what you want. And I shall just put a little drop of that on there with a cocktail stick. Here's the cocktail stick that I always use. Drip it onto there, run it onto the paper, fold it over and hold it for a second, and it will stick and never come off. This piece and this piece have already been stuck down with it, so that has to be sorted. Anyway, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. If you've got this far, thank you. As usual, please subscribe, like, shove into a playlist, embed somewhere else, comment. Love to read your comments, and so far I think I've managed to answer every single one. Don't think anyone's commented and I haven't managed to answer. But then of course if I was getting thousands of comments a day, a video, then maybe I would struggle. But at the moment I'm happy to answer everybody's comments. So hopefully see you again in not too many weeks. My baseboard for North Grove delivery is now only about 2 to 3 weeks away, so maybe the next video will have that already. Don't know, haven't actually planned when the next video will be. I just wait until I've got something to show you really, but this one had to be done today for obvious reasons. So again, thanks for watching. Goodbye for now.